What if the person you trusted as family stole your father's legacy, leaving you with nothing but a fight to reclaim it? My name is Lila Harper, a 32-year-old freelance writer from Seattle. I grew up under my dad's shadow, James Harper, a successful real estate mogul who built an estate worth millions, a sprawling property with vineyards and a mansion. He was my hero, teaching me resilience until cancer took him last year. His death left a void, grief so deep I could barely breathe. But nothing prepared me for the betrayal that followed, a wound that cut deeper than his loss. Dad left his estate to me in his will, a promise he'd whispered on his deathbed. "Lila, it's yours. Keep it alive." I trusted his words, his lawyer, Mr. Grayson, a family friend who'd known us for decades. But a week after the funeral, Grayson called me, his voice cold. "Lila, there's been a change. Your father amended the will before he died. Everything goes to me now, to manage for charity." My heart stopped, a sharp pain slicing through me. "What?" I choked out, my hands trembling. Grayson leaned back, his smile too calm. "He wanted his legacy to help others, not just you. It's legal. Check with your lawyer if you want." I felt the room spin, grief and rage colliding inside me. Dad wouldn't do this. He'd fought to keep that estate, pouring his life into it. I thought of his frail hand in mine, his last breath, and this felt like a lie. Grayson had been at his side those final days, a confidant I'd trusted. Now he was the thief. "This isn't right," I said, my voice shaking. Dad wanted me to have it. Grayson shrugged, his tone dismissive. "Prove it, Lila." The will's filed. Inside, I was a storm. Betrayal burned in my chest, grief twisted my gut, and a quiet, seething anger took root. He'd turned Dad's love into a weapon, and I was the target. The fallout was devastating. I lost my apartment. My freelance income couldn't cover rent. And I'd been counting on the estate's value to stabilize my life. I moved into a cramped motel, the walls damp, the air heavy, my nights filled with sobs. Grayson, meanwhile, flaunted his new role, hosting charity galas at the estate, his name on every invitation. Each photo was a dagger, my anger growing with every scroll. My friends urged me to let it go, to grieve in peace, but I couldn't. I saw Dad's face in my dreams, his disappointment haunting me. Had I failed him? Was I too weak to fight? Self-doubt gnawed at me, but beneath it, a fire flickered. This wasn't just about money, it was about his memory. Then came the first threat. A note slipped under my motel door, the words scrawled in jagged ink. "Back off the estate, or you're done." My heart pounded, fear gripping me as I scanned the dark parking lot. Grayson's face flashed in my mind, his calm smile, his greed. I called the police, but they brushed it off as a prank, leaving me vulnerable. I had 90 days to contest the will before it was finalized, a ticking clock that kept me awake. My hands shook as I clutched the note, my resolve hardening. Grayson thought he'd broken me, but he'd only awakened a side of me I'd buried, a fighter, ready to reclaim Dad's legacy. I had a secret, a flicker of hope I'd kept hidden, and it was time to use it. The threatening note marked the beginning of a nightmare that tested every ounce of my strength. As Lila Harper, a grieving daughter fighting for my father's stolen estate. I locked my motel door each night, the hum of traffic a distant roar to my racing thoughts. The words, "Back off the estate, or you're done," echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of Grayson's betrayal. Was he capable of this? The thought chilled me, a mix of disbelief and dread. He'd been Dad's confidant, a second father to me, but his greed had turned him into a stranger. Inside, I was a mess. Grief for Dad choked me, betrayal burned my trust, and a simmering anger pushed me to act. I couldn't prove the threat came from Grayson, but I couldn't ignore it either. The police were useless, leaving me to buy a cheap lock, my hands trembling as I installed it. My days blurred into a frantic rhythm, searching for evidence, dodging Grayson's smug updates on social media, and avoiding the pity in my friends' eyes. He'd turned the estate into a charity hub, his name glowing on banners, each post a slap in the face. My confidence wobbled, doubts whispering I'd never win. Had Dad really changed his mind? Was I delusional to fight? But his voice cut through the noise. "You're my strength, Lila," and a flicker of hope reignited. What Grayson didn't know was my secret weapon. A month before Dad died, he'd slipped me a letter. His voice weak but firm. "Keep this safe, Lila. It's my real will." I'd tucked it into a locked box, too overwhelmed to read, but now it was my lifeline. I opened the box, my heart pounding as I unfolded the yellowed paper. There it was, his handwriting, dated 2 weeks before his death, naming me sole heir. "To Lila, my estate is yours, protect it." My breath caught, relief flooding me, but also a new fear. This proved Grayson's fraud, but using it meant facing his wrath, and with a 90-day deadline looming, 85 days left, time was slipping away. I sought an ally in Mia, Dad's old assistant, meeting her at a quiet cafe in Seattle. "Mia, Grayson forged the will," I said, my voice low, showing her the letter. Her eyes widened, a mix of shock and anger. "Lila, I suspected something. Grayson pressured your dad those last days. I saw him with new documents." My stomach twisted, the pieces falling into place. Mia agreed to testify, but warned, "He's got connections. You'll need more, something undeniable." She was right. I needed to prove the new will was fake, and the clock was ticking. The threats escalated. One night, my motel window was shattered, a new note inside. "Last chance, quit." My heart raced as I called Mia, my voice breaking. "He's coming for me," I gasped. She arrived with a friend, a locksmith, her face grim. "This is beyond greed," she said. "File a report, and let's get you legal help." I did, the officer's skepticism fueling my resolve. A lawyer, Elena, took my case, reviewing the letter. "This is strong," she said, "but we need to confirm the forgery. We'll subpoena Grayson's records tomorrow." The move was risky. Grayson could strike harder, but I had no choice. I threw myself into the fight, my motel room a war zone of papers and notes, my mind a battlefield. Grief for Dad clashed with rage at Grayson, hope battling despair. I dug into Grayson's past, finding a pattern: financial troubles, shady deals, a history of manipulation. My hands shook as I uncovered a forged signature on the new will, the ink too fresh for Dad's timeline. The deadline was 80 days away, and Grayson's charity gala was announced. A celebration of my loss. I felt the noose tighten, my every move watched. But beneath the chaos, my letter and the forged signature were my edge, a ticking bomb ready to expose his lies. The subpoena for Grayson's records marked the beginning of the end, a ticking clock that led to the most intense day of my life. As Lila Harper, I stood in the Seattle courthouse, my heart pounding, clutching my evidence, the letter, the forged signature, and Mia's statement. The past 80 days had been a gauntlet. Threats, shattered windows, and Grayson's smug gala, where he toasted to philanthropy while I hid in fear. Inside, I was a storm. Fear of failure gnawed at me, rage at his betrayal fueled my resolve, and a fragile hope anchored me. Today was my chance to reclaim Dad's estate, but the stakes were sky high. The courtroom was packed, family friends, Grayson's wealthy allies, and the judge, a stern man named Judge Ellis, sat at the bench, his gaze piercing. Grayson was there, his smirk venomous, seated beside his lawyer, Mr. Pierce, who'd backed the fraud. My lawyer, Elena, stood by me, her presence a lifeline. Lila has evidence proving fraud, she began, her voice steady. I presented the letter, Dad's voice seeming to echo through his words, naming me sole heir. Gasps rippled, Judge Ellis's eyes narrowing. Then, the forged signature. Expert analysis confirmed the ink was recent, impossible for Dad's timeline. Grayson stole my inheritance, I said, my voice breaking with emotion. He betrayed my father. Grayson leapt up, his face red. She's lying, he shouted, his composure shattering. That letter's fake. Inside, his outburst fueled my fire. The years of trust betrayed flashing before me. Mia stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. I saw Grayson forge those papers. He pressured James those last days. The room erupted, Judge Ellis's gavel slamming. Grayson turned to Pierce, pleading, but he looked away, his loyalty crumbling. Elena presented the subpoenaed records, emails between Grayson and Pierce, plotting the fraud, with a $50,000 bribe. This is criminal, Elena said, her voice sharp. The tension was palpable, my heart pounding as Judge Ellis deliberated. Inside, I was a mess. Fear of disbelief clashed with hope, the weight of the past 3 months crushing me. Then, a bombshell, a witness, one of Grayson's allies, turned on him, confessing he'd delivered the threats at Grayson's request. The courtroom gasped, Grayson screamed, piercing the air. You can't do this, he shrieked, but Judge Ellis's voice cut through. Grayson, you're guilty of fraud and intimidation. The original will stand. Lila inherits the estate, and you'll face charges. The crowd buzzed, Grayson's glare burning into me, a silent promise of revenge. I stood frozen, relief flooding me, but also a chilling unease. Judge Ellis turned to me, his tone softer. Lila, your father's estate is yours. You're awarded damages, too. The words hit me like a wave, my knees weak, my mind reeling with the cost, fear, grief, the brink of ruin. As I left the courtroom, a text from Elena lit my phone. He's facing prison. Stay safe. The war wasn't over, but the battle was mine. Grayson's lies had crumbled, and Dad's legacy was safe. The courtroom victory was a bittersweet triumph, a beacon of light after months of darkness. As Lila Harper, I stood in the estate's vineyard, the $5 million property, plus $500,000 in damages, now mine to cherish. The judge's words still echoed, "Your father's estate is yours," a victory I'd earned through tears and terror. But inside, I wrestled with a complex tapestry of emotions, relief washing over me, pride swelling for Dad's legacy, and a lingering fear from Grayson's threats. The notes, the shattered window, they'd left scars. But I'd fought, and I'd won. The transition was swift. I moved into the mansion, the rooms filled with Dad's memories, a tribute to his life. I turned the estate into a writer's retreat, my freelance career blooming as artists flocked to my programs, their gratitude a healing force. But my mind often drifted to Grayson, his empire of lies shattered. News reports showed his trial, his tearful pleas, and I felt a cold satisfaction. Inside, I grappled with my feelings. Part of me wanted to revel in his ruin, to savor the justice, but another part, a softer, wiser part, mourned the friend he'd been. I chose to focus on my healing, letting karma do its work. Grayson's downfall was complete. Convicted of fraud and intimidation, he faced 4 years in prison, his assets seized to pay fines. I watched the verdict on TV, his handcuffs a stark image, and felt a mix of closure and unease. A letter arrived, his handwriting shaky. "I'm sorry, Lila." I was desperate. My chest tightened, memories of him laughing with Dad flashing by. I didn't respond. Forgiveness was a bridge too far, but I kept the letter. A piece of our past I couldn't erase. My focus shifted to building, not destroying. With the estate, I honored Dad's memory. I donated a portion to a cancer research fund, his illness a shadow I'd never forget, and established a scholarship in his name for young writers. The retreat grossed $1 million that year, my reputation soaring. I reconnected with family, hosting a memorial for Dad, his friends sharing stories that warmed my heart. "He'd be so proud," Mia said, hugging me. I forgave their silence during the ordeal, their love a bonus I hadn't expected. One evening, as I stood in the vineyard, the Seattle skyline aglow, a suspicious figure lingered near the gate. My heart raced, old fears resurfacing, but I called security. They found nothing. Likely a remnant of Grayson's allies. I installed cameras, my resolve unshaken. My life flourished, my net worth climbing, my heart healing. I published a memoir, Estate of Truth, inspiring others to fight for justice. Grayson's betrayal had nearly broken me, but it forged me into a steward, Dad's spirit in every vine. I was unstoppable, and his legacy lived on through me.